Are you awake yet? We are ready to talk about a glorious night for the New York Liberty and a challenging time ahead for the Washington Mystics. Locked on women's basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal. I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. More than 100,000 of you showed up for us last month alone. We are on track to break that record here in September. Amazing to see what you do for us as we show up for you 6 days a week. Thank you. Make sure you're subscribing to get not only our regular podcasts, but our shorts as well, live from WNBA arenas, coming from your entire team over at thenexthoops.com, where we have over 100 reported pieces every single month on women's basketball. By the way, we're now talking limited partnerships and collaborations for 2024. Go to editors at thenexthoops.com, drop me an email, having those conversations for like-minded individuals. Make sure you subscribe as well, $9 a month, $72 a year. It goes to pay really important voices in women's basketball journalism, like the great Jackie Powell, who has a story right now up at thenexthoops.com about a fantastically entertaining night at Barclays Center, the New York Liberty 90-85 winners over the Washington Mystics. We're going to go over everything that happened and what it means in segment one. Segment two, a little more into how the Liberty are built moving forward. Segment three, the better matchup for the next round. Of course, we're going to find out tonight who the Liberty are going to play next. Will it be the Connecticut Sun? Will it be the Minnesota Lynx? Game 3 at Target Center. You're not going to want to miss that one. But let's talk first, Jackie Powell, about just the immediate aftermath of that game. What was the mood like among the New York Liberty players that you had the chance to talk to last night?
Oh, they were absolutely relieved. That was the sense I got from them. And it was really interesting, actually, the way the press conferences ran, where we spoke to the Mystics first, and they were really raw, and their emotion was really heightened and dramatic, and it's a sports writer's dream, right? But then I was like, why did the Liberty, they seem happy, but they don't seem as outright emotional. And so when I spoke to the people I talked to, so at the podium, it was Jonquel Jones and Stewie. Then in the scrum afterwards, it was Courtney Vandersloot, Sabrina Ionescu, and
Kayla Thornton.
Yes. They were all talking about this unified sense of relief. It was, thank God we don't have to go to DC. We really don't. We did not want to go to DC, and we fought to not go to DC.
It was very close, though, to all of us going to DC for game 3 and covering a winner-take-all game, a game that the Liberty trailed 78-76 late in the fourth quarter, but a critical offensive rebound by Jonquel Jones. Eric Tebow, head coach of the Mystics, told us afterwards, she's big and good, by way of explaining why Jonquel Jones is so difficult. It's hard to argue with either of those points, but from my perspective, and I was there covering it with you last night, as all of you in the audience who follow us on YouTube, again, got the chance to see the short as well. Well, no. And seeing Jonquel Jones, I wrote about this at the 9 newsletter. There's a lightness to her, this feeling throughout, like she is she feels more at peace where she is now. And it's not a reflection on her son tenure to me so much as it is a reflection on the people that have surrounded her. But, take me through what you think this is role-wise as a fit for Jonquel Jones, even as we acknowledge it is a luxury to have multiple recent MVPs in your starting lineup.
So you're asking about what sort of her role has morphed into be?
Yes, and why again, and you wrote about this, about the importance that the subhead you used was Jonquel Jones's game-deciding double-double, and I just think that's such an interesting way to think about it, as a difference maker in a critical moment rather than a difference maker who has to lift the whole team on her shoulders.
Oh my God, absolutely. I mean, I think you could even think about the way in which Jonquel Jones has played against the Las Vegas Aces this season to be able to frame what that role is. And when we saw her play against the Aces, we were able to see it come to light. But then in this game against the Washington Mystics, where she clearly was the key to mismatching the Mystics and to exploiting the Mystics, we saw it even more. And so that role is, getting the ball to JJ, either on a deep seal or having her in pick and roll, able to create, which, let me tell you, that was so fun watching her create on pick and roll. Like, oh my God. I feel like in watching her these past few years, I didn't really get to see that. And initially in a Liberty uniform, we didn't get to see it so much either. It was more JJ would be trying to seal, or she'd be setting screens on the perimeter, or she'd be on the perimeter waiting for a kick out. But to see JJ just sort of ISO one-on-one, you can really see how talented and how skilled she is. And it's not just the scoring. It's the rebounding. It's how she pursues the basketball. It's how when she is, well, I hate the cliche locked in. They've been saying it so much. It drives me nuts.
I know.
I'm going to use a synonym for it. When she is motivated to win, and the whole team was, they did not want to go to DC, she is pretty damn close to unstoppable. And for her to be able to perfectly execute a play late in the game to try to tie it up after Sabrina Ionescu missed that first free throw. I mean, that's high-level execution. That's execution that the Mystics multiple times were not able to complete. You need to have a very special player to be able to do that.
Jonquel Jones, of course, is such a special player, and it was such a big deal that they were able to add her to this team. I kept thinking on the way home last night about the fact that in the same deal, they were able to add Kayla Thornton as well. And you highlighted what KT has been able to do for this Liberty team, but just my goodness, Jonathan Kolb should probably win Executive of the Year, I think. Kayla Thornton, do you think there's a broader understanding now of just what she brings to this Liberty team?
Oh, God, yes. I mean, and
I know within that locker room. I mean, beyond the locker room.
I think when people watch Liberty games and are at Liberty games and they see what she's doing, she makes it very obvious by how she plays. And for the fans there, you saw her rolling on the floor, I was trying to look and see who the people were who she bumped into, but she was trying to save a loose ball. That is the quintessential Kayla Thornton. The quintessential Kayla Thornton is also, and I watched this play multiple times after, when Courtney Vandersloot was blocked by Shatori Walker-Kimbrough. And mind you, Shatori Walker-Kimbrough is very sneaky with how long she is. Yeah. A really nice block. Kayla Thornton was almost I don't know, the flash, how she was sort of able to like see the whole thing happen and just be like, zoom over there. Like she saw it happen like no one else on the floor. And she found a way to position herself to get the ball in a spot where no one else on the floor was and put back. Easy. Boom. Score.
It is no small thing that Kayla Thornton so often has to guard. The best player on the opposing team has a defensive points per possession of 0.818 this year for the New York Liberty. She makes winning plays always, as Courtney Vandersloot put it. So we're going to talk a little more about Kayla Thornton, a little more about how this team comes together. But first, I'm going to talk to you guys at home about Jace Medical and, of course, the Jace case. And let's be real about it. It is not always so easy to get a doctor's appointment. It's not so easy to get some basic medical attention that you need. So doctors have come together to put the Jace case in your hands. 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. Here's how it works. You fill out a simple online form. In some cases, you jump on a quick call with one of their board-certified physicians. Again, this is all doctor overseen as you do it. Make sure that you're prepared. If it's a night, if it's a weekend, the Jace case is there to help you weather the medical storm. You can save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical. But you can even get more than that, another $20 off by using the code LOCKED ON at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, and it's the code LOCKED ON. So as we think through the particulars of how this team came together, I don't want to get off at KT yet, because Betnijah Laney, again, had a wonderful game. Betnijah Laney has another level in the playoffs. I know that has almost become a cliche, but you can look at the numbers. You can look at her efficiency. You can look at her scoring, what she is able to do. There is an intensity that Laney brings that is undeniable. And so it was a big deal in this game when Betnijah Laney gets her third personal foul, 31-27, mid-second quarter. What do you do in that case, in that scenario? As I've said on this program before, Jonathan Cole built the Noah's Ark of rosters, and there happens to be, it's a crazy thing, the ability to bring Kayla Thornton in. What did you see out of KT in that spot? And I'm just flat out, do you think they win this game without her? I don't think they do.
They don't win this game without Kayla Thornton. I mean, you can look at the box score and you can see, okay, they're not flashy, but the numbers are the numbers. We're talking 6 points and 3 rebounds, 2 of which were offensive rebounds. No way do they win this game without Kayla Thornton doing what she did. And, when you talk about the Noah's Ark of rosters, I will say that Kayla Thornton does not have, maybe I'll say yet, the offensive versatility that Betnijah Laney has. I mean, when you see Laney just, at will creating, at will driving on Ariel Atkins and making her pay. I mean, we've actually, against the Connecticut Sun, there was a wild moment where KT scored off a pick and roll. It was like a mid-range jumper, and Sandy Brondella was like, "What? You have that in you?" So, maybe Kayla Thornton is still growing, and she needed a space like the New York Liberty, and she will be there for the next 2 years after this season, to maybe work with her on player development and think, is there another level that Kayla Thornton can reach?
I am putting anything past Kayla Thornton and what she has done. I just remember at the time, we talked about it at the time, it's, you bring in Jonquel Jones, that's a win. We talked about you bring in Kayla Thornton, that's a win. To get them both in the same deal, and granted, JJ had requested a trade, and so it's not, a fair fight, I guess might be the way to put it as you're negotiating that. But Kayla Thornton hadn't requested a trade, and now she's here, and the Liberty may not advance without her. So for all the flashiness of the offseason with JJ, with Brianna Stewart, who, to be fair, like Brianna Stewart has been pretty helpful too. I think the Liberty are better with Brianna Stewart than without her. I'm not saying otherwise. However, it also and the Mystics are a great example of this. You needed everyone to participate in this win tonight. And on a night that Natasha Cloud was as transcendent as I've ever seen her, not also getting that from Elena Deladon, who was clearly not 100%. You can see it from the first quarter. She was not moving around the way she normally does. And we'll get into more of that tomorrow on the program. We're going to have Jen Hatfield, the Mystics beat reporter, here to talk about it. But you needed all hands on deck in order to win a playoff series against a team that Sandy Brondello herself said, but for injuries would have been a top 3, top 4 team in the Washington Mystics. So Kayla Thornton, just a huge accomplishment. I do want to talk about Sabrina Ionescu as well. And you explained it very well, I thought, in your story about the fact that Sabrina was, face guarded by Natasha Cloud is a nice way of putting it. Natasha Cloud was on her in the way that Cloud is. And you can see it. We laughed about it, like from the first possession where you see her, there is no space between the two of them. And that's how Cloud did it all night. But there were a couple ways in which Sabrina managed to make the most of that and take what the defense gave her in that instance. Take me through it. What did you see?
I mean, what we saw was Sabrina became, in the first half, she became a driver and a penetrator. And she was scoring at the basket. And you used a very interesting term next to me. It was, I don't know if it was overcompensation, or I think that's what it was.
Over pursuit.
Over pursuit.
Yep.
And that's sort of what the Mystics were doing, because they wanted to take away her 3-point shooting and, to be quite honest, the 3-point shooting of the Liberty. And they did a very good job of that. But, okay, so you take away Sabrina Ionescu's 3-point shooting. She also is a combo guard for a reason. So she had 6 assists, I believe. Mm-hmm. And what also made Sabrina Ionescu
5, but yes, very impressive.
5. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what also makes Sabrina Ionescu is her ability to get on the boards. And just watching her pursue the basketball in the way that she was. Obviously, it helps when you have Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones boxing out. But you also, as a guard, you have to have the will and the want to go get the basketball and start the break. And she almost finished with a double-double amid Natasha Cloud's fronting.
And despite that pressure, 1 turnover all night. Not making mistakes is as critical in a game like this as making those plays. As we saw late in that game, the rare misstep. Natasha Cloud had 2 turnovers all night, but one of them, I'm sure she'll be replaying in her head for decades. That throwaway pass with just over 10 seconds to go, Mystics had a chance to have the ball tied and go get a winning shot there in regulation. She referenced it. Tasha's always entirely real, entirely herself, and talked about it in the post game about that. That was a screw up. Again, it should not and does not, to my mind, overshadow the performance she put out there, but it happened. And the fact that Sabrina had only 1 turnover all night, playing more than 40 minutes on the floor, is significant in and of itself. I want to get into the days ahead, what it all means for the Liberty, and who they might play in segment 3. But first, Want to talk to you guys at home about FanDuel. And FanDuel is so interesting, Jackie. They mentioned this league called the National Football League. And you can snap into NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports, but up and coming new league, I guess. Apparently, there are two teams right in New York who play both the hold on, it's the Giants and the Jets. Are you familiar?
I'm familiar with one of them. The
Mhm.
Giants really sound familiar.
Giants are here. Giants, they lost 40-0 in their opener. They won in a thrilling comeback in week 2. And if you go to FanDuel, you can now, as a new customer, get $200 in bonus bets when you place a $5 bet. So somebody who bet on the Giants, $5, whether they had won or lost against the Arizona Cardinals, would have gotten $200 in bonus bets. And you can bet on spreads, player props, like will Aaron Rodgers win the MVP this year? I would bet no, given his Achilles. Over unders, there's even more. So go to fanduel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. It's funny. I feel like New York sports fans are so spoiled with the Liberty, and that's obviously the convention of wisdom everybody talks about. Like, oh, this is a glorious time in New York because the Liberty are so great. But to be fair, not all the New York sports teams are performing as well as the Liberty these days, and it's just something that everyone's so oh, let's focus on the women's sports side of things, but let's we mustn't forget about the men, right?
Nope. It was really funny, Howard. Actually, I saw a reel that is circulating online.
Yeah.
Someone did a Billy on the street type thing outside of Barclays Center. And someone kept asking, would you rather, if you had an opening day ticket to see the Jets or the Giants, would you, if I were to give that to you for your Liberty ticket, would you do it? They all said no. They were all like, I want to be here. I want to be here with my friends. I want to be here with the people I enjoy watching Liberty basketball with. And that's quite incredible when you think about the history of the franchise, but we are not here to talk yet about the history of the franchise.
No, but you set me up really nicely.
I did.
You did, because I was thinking about this on my train ride home yesterday, and I've covered this team for a long time, and it always felt. I remember describing this to my wife about the experience. Like you were going into a secret society, and you go into the arena, whether it was Madison Square Garden or the Thimble that is known as Westchester County Center, and it was like you were with people who cared about this, and then you would leave the arena and there was nothing resonating beyond that. And there wasn't signage even when you got outside, and people would kind of scatter, and it was not this larger community experience. And I say that to contrast it with last night and the crowd yet again at Barclays Center feeling enormous. And I get on my train and everyone's wearing Liberty stuff. And, we did all our post games. These were people who wanted to stick around, who wanted to linger, who wanted to experience things longer and then go home. And everyone was buzzing about that game on the way home on this train for me. And that was so striking to me, this just feeling of like there's a larger understanding of how great the product is in the WNBA, and specifically with the Liberty, what they are, how they perform. It is just a perfect melding of time and place to me, how the Liberty are rising to the occasion right now here in New York. And I think they're going to take advantage. I think they're already taking advantage and seeing this moment. I got to tell you, this is how long-term relationships with communities are forged with their sports teams. It's what happened in Minnesota, and it's why less than 2 days after Minnesota Lynx advanced to that game 3 they're playing tonight, that they were able to sell out the entire lower bowl. And it's
Good for Minnie. That's amazing.
It's amazing, but it's a tribute to that Minnesota has built, what Carly Knotts has built on the business side, what Cheryl Reeve has built on the basketball side, and it's what is happening in real time in New York, a place where the team had been left for dead by previous owner James Dolan. And it's a beautiful thing to see, and it's very different. We're not in Westchester anymore, Jackie Powell. So
You said that to me many times last night.
I'm never going to stop saying that. I'm never going to stop saying that.
Yeah.
We're not in Westchester anymore. The media section is not blocked off by cameras, and you can actually see the game. There are more than 10 people allowed at any one time. You couldn't even hold a minion at Westchester County Center because you'd be over capacity. There's a little joke from my Jewish friends. Shana Tova, everybody. So tonight, the Minnesota Lynx play the Connecticut Sun. Who's the better matchup? The Minnesota Lynx did come in. We saw it happen and beat the New York Liberty at Barclays, and they did it without Natasha Cloud earlier this year. The Liberty, of course, had that great comeback win against the Connecticut Sun in Connecticut. I think New York's obviously a difficult matchup for either one. If you're New York, who are you rooting for as the team that you want them to face? I know they would never admit it, but who would you, if you're Sandy Brundell, who are you hoping wins?
I think it has to be the Lynx because they are not very battle tested. Although Napheesa Collier has had quite a good track record going up against Breanna Stewart. I will never forget in the bubble how she was able, to the best of her ability, to neutralize Stewie. But that 2020 Seattle Storm team, what stood out about it was how deep it was. Okay, what are the similarities with the 2023 New York Liberty?
Yeah.
How deep they are.
No doubt.
So the thing about the Lynx is they're incredibly immature. And I think we saw that in how game 1 went. They're incredibly well coached because of how they won in game 2.
But isn't that a maturity of the roster too? I mean, that's a roster growing up in a hurry. Dorka Juhas coming up big in that moment. You've got battle tested Rachel Banham with that huge shot late, that dagger in the final minute to seal it. I understand what you're saying. It's a young team. I don't know. They seem like they're growing up fast.
I mean, think about, besides the game that was lost on a back-to-back, and that's an important caveat.
No doubt.
The Liberty were able to beat the Lynx following that game by exploiting the advantage they had with Jonquel Jones.
And with depth. That's true. Yeah, listen, I mean, there were times last night where you could just see Maisha Hines-Allen is an excellent player in this league, and she's healthy, and that is beautiful and delightful. And I'll have to look up what state she's from. And to me, it was like seeing her out there against Jonquel Jones, it was just asking too much of her. I mean, it's just the height difference, the size difference. You go back to Eric T-Bone, what he said, she's big and good. It's just very, very difficult. And I don't know that there's an obvious answer for how the Minnesota Lynx defend Jonquel Jones. But let's be real. I don't know that there's an obvious answer in this league for how you defend Jonquel Jones. Maybe come finals time if Las Vegas defeats Dallas and it's A'ja Wilson, but that opens up a whole other can of worms. If you're making A'ja Wilson work that hard, who else comes in to defend, let's say, Breanna Stewart, who is a reasonably decent player in her own right, 2 of everything, including MVP caliber stretch bigs. Just a remarkable thing. Well, we are out of time, but it is delightful always to see you, Jackie Powell, and I appreciate you on the program. If you haven't seen it, folks at home, go to thenetshoops.com. Read Jackie's. It is a journey, as they always are, in the best and most glorious way. come take that journey with Jackie Powell. That's a trip I'll take anytime. Make sure you're with us tomorrow for Jen Hatfield talking Washington Mystics. She and I are going to have a chance to talk to not one, but two Tebows ahead of that one. So we'll let you know what both Eric and Mike had to say. And we will continue on rolling forward. WNBA second round semifinal playoff preview with the great Natalie Heverin on Friday. WNBA retrospect on Saturday. As always, it just keeps on going. Until then, I am Howard Megdal.
And I'm Jackie Powell.
We are wishing all of you a wonderful Wednesday.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.